Nakomik, tu sakhoalwarti. Atauseqoalwart lewinyo hatiatakani. Ukhausiana tulaqlunga kisiani wehasungumigama. Nakomik, thank you very much for having me here. And thank you to the organizers, to Jerry and to Vicky as well, and all their dedicated staff, and for the opportunity to speak here today with my fellow Indigenous peoples. I am from Nunavik originally, but I'm living in Iqaluit in Nunavut. Is this loud enough? Everybody can hear me? No? I should speak louder? I'm not as tall as some, so I'll have to reach over a little bit here. I'd like to just walk through a little bit very briefly before I get into the meat of the matter, and that's the climate change challenge that we face in the Arctic and how that connects to our rights as a peoples. For those of you who don't know, we Inuit live in 4 countries of Canada, Alaska, USA, Greenland, and Russia, and we're about 155,000 Inuit in the entire world, at the top of the world, and the land of the cold, the ice, and the snow. And we lived very, very traditionally not so long ago. Rapid, tumultuous changes come to our homelands in my lifetime. In fact, I traveled only with my family, only by dog team on the ice and snow the first 10 years of my life. So you can appreciate and imagine what that change has happened so very quickly in our homelands in the Arctic. And of course, that kind of tumultuous change, together with historical traumas, have created an incredible breakdown of our society in the Arctic. And we rate one of the highest suicide rates of our young men in North America. And so this is the backdrop in which all these other new changes and the new wave is happening. The first wave arrived in my lifetime, in my mother's lifetime, in my grandmother's lifetime, and now the second wave is really coming hard, and that's environmental degradation. So we are already experiencing rapid changes, which is human-induced climate change. We have experienced, of course, the poisoning of our country food as a result of toxins coming from afar, and had to deal with that intensely at the global level. And in fact, I worked very closely with Tom Goldtooth around the world as we negotiated the Stockholm Convention with the global community to stop these toxins from getting into our food source, into our bodies, and in high levels in the Arctic, in the nursing milk of our mothers. And so environmental issues indeed are not just about the environment. When it comes to Indigenous peoples, they are very much about the health and well-being of not only our bodies, but of course our cultural survival. So we in the Arctic, of course, for generations, Inuit, we have closely been observing the environment, and we have accurately predicted the weather around us that has enabled us to travel safely on the sea ice to hunt our marine mammals, our walrus, and our polar bears. And so nowhere else in the world really does ice and snow represent transportation, mobility, and life for our peoples. And ice and snow, in fact, are our highways that bring us out to the supermarkets, which is the environment, and links us to each other, to other communities. And several communities already, as we speak, are so damaged by global warming and climate changes that relocation at the cost of millions of dollars is now the only option. And among the harm that we have suffered both in Canada and Alaska, just to name a few, because in the absence of time I don't want to go into them in too much detail, but just to give you an example of the damages on the roads and the runways that are already damaged, the eroded landscape, the contaminated drinking water, the coastal losses because of erosion, the melting permafrost that is now causing beach slumping and increased snowfall in some areas, not enough snow in other areas, longer sea ice-free seasons. New species of birds and fish and insects have arrived in the Arctic, which we don't even have names for half the time. There's unpredictable sea ice conditions. Glaciers are melting, creating torrent rivers instead of streams, and now we have more drownings, and we have, as a result of the unpredictability and condition of the ice, as well as torrents now instead of streams where our hunters thought they could cross safely. There's also large plans now to relocate some of our communities. And it's becoming very stark, and it's becoming a real dangerous reality for many of us up there. And so it is starting to undermine the ecosystem, of course, on the very land, the ice, and the snow that we depend for our own physical and survival, cultural survival. And science now has caught up to our hunters, what we have been saying for years. And our hunters are scientists in their own right. They may not have institutional recognition, but by goodness, they are scientists in their own right. And they have been observing these changes for decades. And in 2003, the Arctic Climate Impact Assessment released the world's most comprehensive, detailed assessment, regional assessment of climate change. And it was prepared by more than 300 scientists from 15 countries, but it included traditional knowledge throughout this process because we said it had to, and we said enough further research that would not effectively benefit our people of the Arctic. And so I just want to read two quick key conclusions of this assessment, which are very stark reading for the peoples of the Arctic, and particularly Inuit. And it says, marine species dependent on sea ice, including polar bears, ice-living seals, walrus, and some marine birds, are very likely to decline, with some facing extinction. And two, for Inuit, warming is likely to disrupt or even destroy their hunting and food-sharing culture, as reduced sea ice causes populations to decline or become extinct. So you see, climate change is not just an environmental issue with unwelcome economic consequences. It really is a matter of livelihood, food, individual and cultural survival, and it is absolutely a human issue affecting our children, affecting our families, and certainly our communities. And the Arctic is not a wilderness or a frontier. It is our home. It is our homeland. And of course, the hunting culture is so misunderstood, and I know that I am in a room full of my own fellow Indigenous peoples who understand that a hunting culture is not just about the killing of animals. It is about teaching our young children, our children, for the opportunities and challenges of life on the land, but very transferable skills such as patience, courage, how to be bold under pressure, how to withstand stress, how to not to be impulsive, how to have sound judgment, and ultimately wisdom. Those are the very things that traditional knowledges and hunting cultures teach and pass on to the younger generation. And these skills are so transferable, and in fact a requirement to survive a transitioning culture such as ours and many others around the world. And so it's more than meets the eye when we talk about environmental degradation of the Arctic, that this is very much about a people's trying to make it in this new world order of globalization that affords us respect and a place in this world that we have always had.